It is Patton and Dykes. Here we go. 100 meters to go. Patton on the inside, Dykes on the outside. This is going to be a drag race these last 40 meters. Patton and Dykes, Patton and Dykes. Now Dykes moves to the front, and Dykes will get the victory. 5:16:35.
Hey, Autumn Athletes, Larry Sorensen here, and today we're going to sit down with another Autumn Athlete that's not done yet. Today we're going to sit and talk with Gene Dykes and find out what he's up to and what his plans are for the near future. Gene, thanks so much for joining us today. Why don't you kick this thing off with telling us your bio basics?
Okay, well, it's certainly my pleasure to be here. The only thing I like better than talking about running is running itself, so it's always fun to do these kinds of things. Okay, a quick biography here. Born in 1948 in Canton, Ohio. It was a great place to grow up, 5'10", and my weight kind of goes up and down depending on whether there's an important race coming up. Right now I'm about 142. And I think 3 days ago I was 140. So, you know, I can eat junk food with the best of them. I try and get down to about 137 or 138 for important marathons because pounds are important. 2 seconds per pound per mile. Every pound I lose is a minute off my marathon time. So, you know.
Okay.
That's the hardest part of training, keeping my weight down. I was the second of 4 kids, and older brother, younger sister. And so having a couple brothers, I guess I grew up kind of competitive. You could easily look at my childhood and say, oh, well, it's easy to understand why you're so competitive. Along the way involves going to Lehigh University for undergraduate school as a in a chemistry major, to Cornell as for a PhD in biochemistry, and then a lifelong career of computer programming, which I just loved. So almost regretted retiring 10 years ago, but the retirement is wonderful. Mm-hmm. So I tell people, save your legs and your money for retirement. You'll just have a blast. I got married 41 years ago, and we're still happily together. I have 2 daughters, aged about 38 and 35, and one's in the sort of high-tech finance out in San Francisco, and the older one's a psychiatrist in Minneapolis. My wife's on the faculty of the University of Pennsylvania in the Wharton School. She's an economics professor.
How about your fitness background?
Oh, I guess I've always been pretty fit. I always just burned the candle at both ends in high school and college. In college, I played every intramural sport I could. I ran track all 4 years. If you consider bowling and golf as part of fitness,
absolutely,
those were my 2 main activities as an adult. I golfed a lot and always was in a bowling league. Running didn't really take priority until much later on.
Tell us a little bit about your golf and bowling.
I always wanted to be a better golfer than bowler. I managed to get my golf handicap down to about 4 for a number of years, and I even qualified for the U.S. Amateur one year as an alternate. Played in some big tournaments with and against future professionals on the tour. So it was an exciting, but I guess I was a better bowler. I don't know. I had 4 300 games. And
how about setbacks? Have you had any setbacks along the way?
Well, one setback turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me, I guess. I was in my 50s, and that was in my jogging phase. From college until late 50s, my only running was, you know, getting in shape by jogging now and then. I never raced. And one day I was out with a guy, and I thought I'd try and beat him back. So with about 200 or 300 yards to go, I picked it up into an all-out sprint. That was my last run for 6 years because I pulled the hamstring at the insertion point, tore it right up. And every year I'd go out. Nope, still hurts. It wasn't until 6 years later that I finally went out for a run, and it doesn't hurt anymore. I can resume running. Now, 6 years lost. People would say, well, that's 6 years of your best years you lost, but that's not true. When you take off for an injury, that's time postponed, not time lost. And so that allowed me to not really start picking up running until I was in my late 60s and 70s. And, by then, half my competition is 6 feet under. So it becomes a whole lot easier to be competitive.
So speaking of being competitive, why don't you fill us in on some of your personal best achievements?
Once I hired a coach, within 5 months, I knocked, 20 minutes off my marathon PR and finished third in the Boston Marathon in my age group. I was pretty tickled with that. And I thought, well, that's got to be the height of my fame. But I've gone on to win my age group at Boston 5 or 6 times. With my coach, my marathons kept dropping year after year until at age 70, I broke 3 hours for the first time. That made me only the second guy in history over 70 years old to run a sub 3 hour marathon. And then I bettered it again later on in the year. And finally, late in December, I even beat the world record for the marathon in my age group. And
what was that time?
that was 2:54:23. And beat the world record, but I didn't set it because the race director didn't sanction the race like he said he would. And if the race isn't sanctioned, it doesn't count. So everybody thinks I have a world record. So I was real happy 2 years ago when I finally did get a world record in the 50K. So I can say I have won.
What's your current goals and or pending events that you're training for right now?
Since I turned 75, I drew up a spreadsheet with all the records I thought I could beat. There were about 6 or 7 world records and a dozen or so national records that I thought were in the bag. But well, talk about setbacks. Last December, I was diagnosed with blood cancer, which explained why my performances were plummeting. And it's not the kind that kills you, fortunately, but it does wreak havoc on my aerobic capacity. So if I, running real hard, I just can't get enough oxygen to my muscles. Not sure why. The disease, although it's incurable, is eminently treatable. And I'm on a cheap drug, take 1 pill once a day. And my blood count is now normal, but my running still isn't. I've taken cardiac tests and pulmonary tests, and nobody knows why. I'm just hoping it'll fade away and I'll be able to return to record-setting form. As it is, I can still win races. I just can't consider records anymore. But there's a million ways to have fun running, and one of them is ultra running. And when you're running ultras, you're running well below your aerobic capacity limits. And so I can still run 100-mile races. And in fact, I'm running one this weekend.
And what's the race you're going to run at?
Called the Wyoming Range 100. It's in the mountains just south of Grand Teton. Runs right up the spine of that mountain range. And so it's going to be at about 9,000 feet average elevation, frequently above tree line. The weather forecast is good, but mountains make their own weather. So you've got to always be prepared. I'll be carrying a backpack full of down and rain jackets and food and batteries and things because, lots can go wrong when you're out there 20 miles from anywhere.
Notwithstanding the blood issue that you're having, just in general terms, and if it's changed because of that, how do you train for something like this?
Oh, the way I train for ultras is just by running lots and lots of races, including ultras. This will be about my 6th or 7th ultra this year. So I don't train for ultras. I still train as if I've got a marathon record attempt coming up. That's what I told my coach to do. Always assume I've got a marathon PR in sight. And if you can train for a marathon hard, anything else is easier. Right now, my eye's on the 100. Got to finish it. I haven't finished 100 yet this year, so I'd hate to go a year without one. 100 a year keeps the reaper away, something like that.
That's a good rhyme, sure. How about your approach to diet and nutrition?
Oh, I have no special diet, which goes along with one of my catchphrases, which is just run. People say, what are your secrets? I say, well, I just run. I don't do any weightlifting, core exercises, flexibility, stretching, cross training. All I do is run. And sort of the same with diet. I don't have any special diet. I just, fortunately, I eat healthy. I'll eat anything, and unfortunately, frequently do, which is why my weight's up a little this week. That's what happens when you go out and run an ultra. You lose about 2 pounds during the race, but you gain about 5 pounds afterwards because
Sure.
you're just so ferociously hungry.
So what's your go-to after a big long race? I know for myself, when I would finish marathons, my thing was waffle fries and like a burger. That was my cheat meal and my reward after finishing marathons. Do you have any special meal or anything that you like to go after running 100 miles?
I almost have to say everything. When people say after a marathon, they'll say, "Well, what was your favorite part of the marathon?" I said, "Well, that's easy. It was the food tent at the end of the race." That's wonderful stuff. And when I pull into an aid station at 100 milers, I have a few go-tos. First thing I'll grab is an orange slice. That really kind of cleans your mouth out, and then you can stare at the other food and see what you like. It's usually grilled cheese or peanut butter and jelly. I'm getting better at not eating the cookies and the chips and all that stuff that you regret later on. Yeah, bananas are always good. At some hundreds, you can get quesadillas and pancakes and hamburgers. I mean, it's for those of you who haven't run ultras, ultra aid stations are way better than marathon aid stations.
Yeah.
Water and goo is what you get at a marathon, but boy, you get anything in these really long races.
What motivates you to keep going today?
I guess I still like running. One of the reasons having a coach is so good is because you're held accountable. Not only do you know the right workouts, but I'd rather shoot myself in the head than tell my coach I couldn't do his workout. And it's sort of the same thing now that I've built up a reputation. People are expecting me to still go out and win these. So maybe I don't have quite the fire I used to just to meet goals, but I kind of like to not let people down. So I don't want to. Who wants to be a has-been?
So would you have done anything differently along the way?
I don't regret too much because
Yeah.
if I'd have started training under a coach too soon, I might have peaked earlier. And really it's a lot easier to be competitive when you peak. When I first started running about age 60, I was getting trounced by all other 60-year-olds.
Yeah.
And over the next 10 years, they were all getting slowly worse. And I was getting gradually better. And, and that's a good thing to have. I mean, you really start moving up in the standings when you're improving at that kind of age. Now I'm in the same boat. All my times are decreasing, and I'll just have to find new goals, but mainly as long as running is fun, and there's a lot of ways to have fun. I have a good social network. I've got folks in the neighborhood I run with, and at the races you start seeing all the same people again. And planning trips is something I'll probably try and do more of. A couple of years ago, a group of us went to Utah. And each day we ran a race in a national park, not a race, just a nice long run in a national park together, all the way across Zion one day through Bryce and Canyonlands. And so doing long runs and beautiful scenery with great friends, it's not competitive at all, but a wonderful experience.
What is your secret sauce to health and fitness?
For the ranked beginners, my advice is always, there is no worse pain than out of shape pain. And I think they go out one or two runs and say, "Oh man, this is so hard. This is crazy," and they quit. But the point is, as you get faster, it doesn't get harder and more painful. It gets easier and less painful. And so just keep your eye on that. In fact, within a day or two, you should start seeing improvement. And that's what they should key on, is just improvement from day to day. And so as the days and weeks and months and years go by, always do one or more of three things. This is the secret. Every time period, you go a little further, go a little faster, and or go a little more frequently. And if you just try and do that, I mean, it's amazing where you'll be. You'll be doing things you wouldn't have thought possible. I mean, I ran 3 200-milers in 3 months. I mean, you don't just come out, the first week of training and think, "Oh, I'll train for running 200 milers in 3 months. It's something that just comes by trying to beat whatever it was you did the year before. If you want to get good at anything, hiring a coach is probably a good idea. I mean, you want to be a better speaker, hire a coach. My brother-in-law or son-in-law, heard me say that and says, he's right. He was a rock climber and he went out and hired a coach to help his rock climbing, and he, was able to get to a new level.
Well, Gene, thanks so much for sharing your time with us and telling us what makes you an autumn athlete that's not done yet. Really appreciate it. I'm going to close this up by giving you the floor to just give our audience any final thoughts.
I have this fantasy that when I die and go to the pearly gates, that the way things are set up there is they have all these dozens or hundreds of buckets, each of them labeled, and you have to pick the name out of one of those buckets to spend the rest of eternity with. So there's the runner's bucket and the golfer's bucket and bowling and the politician and the lawyer's bucket, you name it. But there's no doubt whatsoever that, man, I'm going for that runner bucket. I said it earlier, you can go to any race and talk to a runner and, you instantly have a friend. I mean, they're the most friendly, helpful people you'd ever want to run into. I mentioned that, there's so many fun ways to have running. And I think a lot of runners just kind of restrict themselves. They just run on the roads. Well, there's tracks and there's trails and there's cross country. And if you should try all these things. I mean, I know a lot of people who have never run on a trail. And, to me, that's the most fun you can have running. And they're not all riddled with rocks and roots that are going to, put you in the hospital. A lot of them are fairly easy and you can enjoy them. And there are different kinds of races. In addition to races against distance, there's races against time where you go out and see how far you can run in 12 hours. I mean, here's one you're guaranteed to finish because, even if you run just a minute, it's how far you can run in 12 hours. And if you like that, there are 24 and 36, 48 and 96-hour races. So branch out. And online, there are even, competitions. There are virtual runs across Tennessee and things like that. If you can't find a local community to run with, there are these sort of online communities to run with. So search out all the various ways to have fun running. It might be more fun than whatever it is you're doing now.
Again, more great advice from another autumn athlete that's not done yet. Please remember to like, subscribe, and ding that bell for notifications, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.